When you win $92 million, you want to share that moment with your loved ones. And then everything falls apart in a second. Hi, I grew up in a family where my mother worked in an office. I'm familiar with these corridors, these doors. It's not just a story for youth, it's an emotional experience so that people can recognize themselves and not repeat the mistakes of others. All company names and addresses in the city are fictional and have been changed.
She kept giggling all the way from the parking garage, dragging her tiny, sparkly backpack behind her, the one with the worn-out unicorn keychain Amanda had given her on her 4th birthday. I remember thinking, this is what it feels like to have everything. $92 million sat folded in my wallet like a secret too big to say out loud. I hadn't even told her yet. Wanted to see Amanda's face first. Wanted us to share that moment as a family. We're here to see Amanda, I said, still breathless from the stairs, grinning like a fool. I probably looked insane. Our daughter was bouncing on her toes, humming some song about jelly beans. I looked down at her, already picturing how Amanda would cry, maybe hug me, scoop our girl into her arms, and we'd all collapse into laughter. My fingers were still tingling from signing the back of that ticket. But the receptionist, new girl, maybe 22, too much lip gloss, too much edge, stood up way too fast. Her eyes flicked to the frosted glass door like a rabbit hearing footsteps. "She's in a meeting right now," she said quickly. "Maybe you can leave a message?" "I'd really rather not," I said, still smiling but now holding my daughter's hand a little tighter. "It's important." She bit her lip and glanced toward the door again. That's when I heard it. Laughter, but not the kind Amanda used in meetings. No, this one was soft, flirty, followed by a low hum and something that sounded like fabric rustling, and then, God help me, a moan, muffled, barely there, but unmistakable. I bent down to our daughter. "Sweetheart, why don't you go sit in the break room for a bit? I'll get you a juice box. Here, watch this." I handed her my phone, already open to one of her favorite cartoons. She was still smiling but confused. I kissed her forehead and walked her down the hall. When I turned back, my legs moved on their own. This is the part where people expect fireworks, where I bang on the door, scream, throw something, or march in like the ending of a bad soap opera. But I didn't. I did something worse. And while the rest of this story unfolds, if you've made it this far, tap that like button and subscribe. It's a small thing, but it keeps stories like this coming, and it truly means a lot to the team sharing them. I walked to the side hallway toward the emergency stairs, not toward the parking lot, not toward the confrontation. Instead, I pulled out my phone and opened the encrypted folder. I had built it years ago. Notes, receipts, timestamps, photos, a list of lies Amanda didn't even know she'd told. I'd never wanted to believe any of it. Chalked it up to paranoia, but something in me had started preparing long before today. I took a photo of the door. I noted the time. I turned, walked down the stairs, and exited out the back into the biting December air, heart thudding but hands steady. There was no rage, just clarity, not the kind that screams, the kind that whispers. It's already too late. The plan I'd never wanted to use had just activated. And Amanda? She had no idea she'd just lost the lottery. She never kept the same lock screen longer than a month. Always some abstract wallpaper, never photos of us. She used to say she didn't want to look like one of those moms who posts every sandwich in Sunset. But I stopped buying that excuse the day I saw a cropped screenshot of a beach selfie, one I didn't take, sitting half visible in her photo preview when she handed me her phone by mistake. I didn't ask about it. Just watched as she quietly turned the screen face down like a reflex. Her texts were always cleared. Call logs too neat. She claimed her storage was full and had to clean up constantly. But the patterns were too clean. I work in systems. Patterns are my job. Her chaos had order, strategic absence. That's when it started to click. Last month, she came home from a networking mixer in Cincinnati. I asked how the hotel was. She looked blank for half a second before rattling off some Marriott she'd supposedly stayed in. I let it go. 2 days later, a receipt showed up in the mail. Bottle of Pinot, 2 entrees, 1 dessert, charged in Columbus. She hadn't even driven the right number of miles. I didn't ask. I just folded the receipt, tucked it into the envelope marked emergency use only, and went back to making pancakes with our daughter. Syrup on every surface, her giggling under the table. I had too much good in my arms to waste energy chasing the bad in someone else's bed. Amanda always said I had trust issues. That I read too much into things. But you don't need issues when the truth starts writing itself in your face, one digital breadcrumb at a time. And even then, I wanted to be wrong. I prayed I was, right up until that moment outside her office, the moment the sound broke through, the sound no parent wants their child to hear through a cracked door labeled Mom. I didn't lose it. I didn't barge in. I didn't even flinch, just turned and let a colder version of myself step forward, the one I kept buried under carpools and shared calendars and remembering her almond milk at the store. That night, after tucking our daughter in, I opened a sealed folder on my laptop, the one titled Sunset LLC. Inside were all the documents I'd drafted months ago, never expecting I'd use them. The living trust in our daughter's name, the financial power of attorney linked to my sister, the quitclaim deed Amanda had signed years ago just in case, and the prenup she never bothered to read past page 3. I cross-checked dates, double-confirmed account activity, flagged a few transactions that raised questions, wine bars in cities she hadn't traveled to, Lyft rides late at night from meetings that didn't show up on her work calendar. I called the attorney the next morning, calm, precise, no drama, just told him, activate what we discussed. He didn't ask questions. Amanda always liked to say I was boring, steady, predictable. She never understood that predictable is what people call you right before you prove how far ahead you've actually been playing. The cashier had stared at the numbers twice before looking up at me like she'd seen a ghost. You should sign it, she whispered, like speaking too loudly might jinx it. So I did. Right there at the gas station counter with our daughter humming beside me and juice on her shirt, I signed that slip of paper worth $92 million with the same hand I'd used to pack school lunches, unclog sinks, and hold Amanda's trembling fingers through 2 miscarriages. But I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't drive to her work with champagne or show up in a daze like some movie husband crying with joy, because by then I knew better. I drove straight to the bank instead. It was still early, before rush hour, when I walked into Central State Trust and Security. The manager had met me once before, months back, when I opened a sealed, dormant trust under our daughter's name. At the time, Amanda thought I was rebalancing our college funds. I let her think that. I even let her pick out a new investment app that she never once logged into. What she didn't know was that Sunset Irrevocable Trust had been sitting quietly under federal protections, awaiting any assets deposited under its terms. It was written in airtight language. The trustee was independent. The beneficiary? A 6-year-old girl who still pronounced spaghetti with a B. I handed the ticket to the bank's notary. Then I watched it slide into the vault, behind more steel than our marriage had ever had. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel greedy. I just felt safe. People always imagine that winning the lottery means buying things, mansions, cars, a life you didn't earn. But for me, it meant finally having something Amanda couldn't touch, manipulate, or cry her way back into. It meant that whatever came next, custody filings, false apologies, threats about what's fair, there was a firewall she'd never hack through. Not this time. Because here's what most people don't realize. If you win money after you've already separated, and if you shelter it properly before any divorce proceedings start, the court can't touch it, especially if it's assigned to a minor through an independently managed trust. It didn't matter if she tried to cry poor. The trustee wasn't me. The assets weren't technically mine anymore. They were protected by a series of escalator clauses and oversight reviews she'd never be able to bluff her way past. Amanda had always been the one in charge of appearances. She curated everything. The matching family photo shoots, the couple's dinner parties, the way she said "my husband" when talking about my job, but "we" when talking about her accomplishments. But in all her curation, she never bothered to learn the fine print. She didn't know I'd shifted our shared investment account out of joint control 3 years ago, right after she posted a selfie at a bar in Austin she told me she'd never visited. She didn't know I'd filed the vehicle title in only my name last year, or that I'd rerouted my payroll into a private account under my trust alias months before I ever suspected the affair. She thought I was passive. Truth was, I just stopped warning people who showed me who they were. I started building a world she wouldn't be invited to. That ticket? It didn't change the plan. It just funded the next chapter faster. And when the papers hit her desk, when the account started freezing, when the panic text showed up on my phone that simply read, "What's going on?" I knew we'd crossed a line. Not the kind you yell about, the kind you never come back from. She waltzed in with Thai takeout and a smug little melody on her lips, like the world had finally tilted in her favor. I watched her from the kitchen doorway as she unpacked green curry and mango sticky rice onto our table, humming that same damn indie song she always played after girls' nights out. Only this time, her makeup was too perfect for a casual dinner, and her perfume hit like an apology wrapped in seduction. She didn't even ask where our daughter was, just said, "I figured we could eat, decompress a little." I knew exactly why she was relaxed. I'd already seen the footage, quietly requested through a friend who managed the building's security contractors. A single clip, grainy, time-stamped. Her office door opening, then closing at 11:38 a.m. He left adjusting his tie. She followed a moment later, hair slightly tousled, her blouse buttoned wrong. She had no idea I'd watched it over coffee, completely calm while our daughter colored in the next room. I'd already spoken to an attorney that morning, already finalized the filing strategy. Custody, asset tracing, spousal fraud exposure, all covered. The documents were in motion, clean, quiet, tactical. I'd already called the registrar at Glenhaven Academy, the private school an hour away that Amanda never wanted to consider because it wasn't diverse enough for Instagram. Our daughter's records were being transferred, not permanently, just safeguarded. Her new school had a campus rabbit and a robotics lab. She'd be fine. Amanda poured wine for herself, none for me, sat down, looked up like she was auditioning for a scene. "So, I've been thinking," she began, drawing out the words like syrup. "Maybe we should take some time apart, just to think, clear our heads, see where we're at." I tilted my head and studied her for a second, like she was a puzzle I'd already solved. "I think you're right," I said softly. She blinked. Didn't expect that. Expected a fight. A breakdown. Groveling, maybe. Not this. "Really?" she said. I nodded. "Sometimes space tells you everything." She gave a rehearsed little smile. "Do you want to talk about anything? Clear the air?" I leaned back in my chair, felt the steady weight of everything I'd set in motion these past few days. The vault, the trust, the filings, the school, the silence. "No," I said, voice even, "already handled." The smile on her face faltered, just slightly, like the stage lights flickered for half a second. She wasn't used to being outmaneuvered, especially not by me. She tried again. "I mean, we can still figure things out, right?" I stood up, collected the plates. "You should eat," I said. "It'll get cold." In the other room, our daughter's tiny suitcase sat zipped by the door. She thought we were going on a trip. In a way, she wasn't wrong. Amanda stayed at the table, wine in hand, staring at a meal we were never going to eat together. I didn't slam the door, didn't make a speech. I just walked upstairs and tucked in our little girl, brushing her hair off her forehead like I always had. Amanda never asked where we were going that night, and by the time she realized she wasn't the one leaving, it was too late. Her lawyer's email was civil enough, cloaked in that polished condescension attorneys love when they think they're still playing chess and haven't realized the board's already been flipped. "Given recent developments in your financial disclosures, we would appreciate clarification on a few matters," he wrote. "Our client is under the impression that a substantial change in your assets may have occurred." I didn't respond. Not to that. Not to the second email either, or the third. 3 weeks had passed since Amanda's time apart pitch, and in that time, she'd gone from confident to confused. Her smirks had thinned. The makeup got heavier, her Instagram captions more cryptic. The subtext was there for anyone who knew her code. Healing isn't linear, followed by a staged latte photo. Sometimes you outgrow people, over a filtered mirror selfie. I recognized them for what they were, panic signals disguised as empowerment. They tried to subpoena the trust through a family court motion. I knew they would. But the structure was immovable. The funds weren't in my name. The winnings had entered through a separate legal entity. Even the trustee was a third-party fiduciary I'd pre-contracted long before the ticket ever existed. Amanda could throw tantrums, file motions, or scream into the void, but the truth was simple. She was boxed out. When the subpoenas failed, she pivoted to the accounts. That's when things got interesting. She logged into our old joint checking, probably expecting to move a few thousand to hold her over. She'd always treated it like a piggy bank with no bottom. But now, the transfer button wouldn't work. She tried the shared investment account. Frozen. The HELOC? Locked. Even her personal Amex, the one I'd co-signed years ago when she said credit is sexist, was now listed as pending investigation. She called the bank, got a specialist, and that's when the words hit her. Ma'am, this account is currently flagged for review due to suspected marital financial misrepresentation. She sent me a text that night. No emojis, no passive-aggressive tone, just one line. Why is the bank asking about falsified declarations? I stared at it for a full minute, then set the phone down and got back to helping our daughter with her diorama. Paper trees, glue everywhere, little plastic animals standing crooked on construction paper. That was the difference between us. Amanda spun chaos and expected the world to orbit her story. I built systems so the world didn't have to hear mine. My attorney had quietly filed the marital fraud claim the same day we finalized the trust protection. Based on what we'd gathered, her hiding expenses, transferring funds, misrepresenting business trips, it wasn't hard to make the case. The bank flagged the accounts as a precaution. I didn't have to prove malice, just a pattern. And Amanda? She'd given me years of patterns. Another email came from her lawyer 2 days later. Tone less polite now, more urgent. They wanted a conversation, a path forward, mutual understanding. Still, I said nothing, because sometimes silence is the loudest answer you can give someone who's only ever listened to themselves. She didn't call ahead, just showed up in the driveway, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. No makeup, no earrings. Her hair pulled into a crooked ponytail like she'd tried to do it 5 times and gave up. She clutched her phone like it might save her. I watched from the upstairs window as she paced once, then took a deep breath and rang the bell. My sister answered. Didn't say much, just stepped aside. Amanda walked in like she half expected to be screamed at. I stayed seated at the kitchen table, watching our daughter stack cereal pieces into a tower. "Can I talk to you?" she said, her voice already cracking. I looked up, nodded once. Outside. We stood in the backyard under the rusted swing set I'd helped install 4 summers ago. The sky was low and gray. She crossed her arms against the chill and tried to meet my eyes, but she couldn't hold the stare. I messed up, she began, voice breaking on the first syllable. I didn't know how to tell you. I never meant to hurt you. It didn't mean anything. She said it like she thought it would soften the blow. Like cheating loses weight when you label it casual. I let her talk. Let her spin her version of events, emotional confusion, loneliness, stress, something about not recognizing herself lately. Then, but I want to fix this, for her. She nodded toward the house, toward the daughter she hadn't asked to see in weeks. I reached into my coat pocket and handed her the envelope. She blinked. "What's this?" "Open it." She pulled out the top sheet and immediately recognized it, the prenup. The one she'd laughed at before our wedding, calling it some ridiculous boilerplate your lawyer made you bring to feel important. She hadn't read it, just skimmed it, giggled, and signed with a joke about how we'd never need it because we were too boring to fail. Only I'd made one amendment to it, added a clause on page 5, had it notarized, witnessed, sealed, and that clause was printed in bold, capitalized type just below her own signature. Clause 4C. In the event of confirmed extramarital infidelity by either party, that party forfeits all claim to joint assets, spousal support, and business entitlements as defined in sections 2A, 2B, and 3. Her fingers trembled. You added this?" she whispered. "I did. You didn't tell me. You didn't ask." She looked up, eyes wide and glassy, like she was still waiting for me to blink and say I was bluffing. But I wasn't. "You said you forgave me," she said suddenly, grasping for something. "No," I replied steady. "I just stopped arguing." She stared at the papers, then back at the house. "So what? That's it? You're cutting me out?" "I'm honoring what you signed," I said. Her voice rose. "That was years ago. We were kids." "No," I said. "You were. I read every line." She took a shaky breath, then tried to reach for my hand. I stepped back. Don't, I said gently. And that was it. No fight, no screaming, just a woman holding the contract she dismissed like a prop, realizing too late it had teeth. Amanda used to call me the safest bet in the world. She never thought to ask what I was betting on. I drove past her office on the way to pick up a new backpack for our daughter. Purple with tiny cartoon foxes, the kind Amanda used to call tacky, before our girl learned to pick things for herself. I wasn't planning on stopping. Just hadn't taken that street in weeks. But then I saw it. No nameplate on the glass wall, just smudges where the adhesive letters had been peeled off. Her office was empty. Desk cleared, chair pushed in. A potted plant sat on the windowsill, wilting. That was the only thing left behind. I parked across the street and sat for a moment, watching. A few employees passed the hallway where her office used to be. None of them stopped. None of them even glanced at the space. She was already a memory. What Amanda never realized was how deeply tangled her life had become in a web of other people's reputations. The man she'd been seeing, the one from her office, was married too, to a woman who happened to be the founder of one of the firm's most lucrative client accounts, real estate law, upscale development deals. Amanda had always bragged about owning that relationship. Turned out she was too literal. I never made a scene, never sent a scorched earth email or played victim. I just packaged a clean, time-stamped copy of the building's security footage. Just the parts where they exited her office, one after another, adjusting clothing and glancing around. No sound, no commentary, just the truth, captured plainly. I sent it from a burner email to the wife's personal address. No name, no subject line, just a video and one sentence. You deserve the full picture. I'll never know what happened in that house the night she opened it, but I do know what happened after. Within a week, the client began to reevaluate their partnership with Amanda's firm. A quiet review turned into a louder HR inquiry. By the time someone used the words conflict of interest, it wasn't even about the affair. It was about liability. They let her go without a press release. No farewell email, no goodbye party. Amanda told mutual friends she needed a break from corporate, like it was a sabbatical she chose. But the firm wiped her bio off the website before the week was over. Her corner office, the one she used to flaunt like a crown jewel, was converted into a conference room. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just picked up the backpack, paid in cash, and drove to the preschool where our daughter was waiting, holding a construction paper crown she'd made in class. Amanda had spent years playing the architect of her own narrative. She never realized the foundation was already cracking before the first domino fell. The backyard was strung with paper lanterns and crepe streamers, half of them sagging by the time the cupcakes came out. Nothing fancy, just a handful of kids from her new school, some plastic folding chairs, a bubble machine that refused to stay plugged in, and Jen humming quietly while taping up a giant number 6 near the fence. Amanda showed up 20 minutes late, holding a gift bag too shiny for the rest of the party. Gold foil, stiff tissue paper, a designer label poking out like it might buy back what she'd lost. She lingered by the gate for a moment before stepping in, scanning the yard like a stranger entering someone else's life. Our daughter was midway through showing off her homemade slime when she spotted her. "Hi," Amanda said softly. Our daughter blinked, then smiled politely, not with joy, just reflex, the kind kids learn when they know someone expects something but they're not sure what. She ran to me first, grabbed my leg. Jen knelt beside her with a juice box and whispered something that made her laugh. "Thanks, Mama Jen," she said without hesitation, already spinning toward the swings. Amanda flinched, like the words punched her through a fog she thought hadn't thickened yet. She handed me the gift. "It's a necklace," she said. "Little birthstone charm for her memory box." I nodded. "Thanks." She tried to make small talk, but the parents nearby didn't know her. They knew me, they knew Jen, and they could read the air. One mom offered her a cupcake. Amanda declined, said she was watching sugar lately, then stood by the hedge, half-shadowed, arms crossed as laughter filled the yard without her. Our daughter never asked her to play. She never showed her the glittery cards or the stick-on earrings from her friends. When Amanda tried to approach during present time, she looked over at me, hesitant, like she wasn't sure what rules still applied. Later, as the sun started to sink and parents trickled out with sleepy kids in tow, Amanda stayed behind. Just long enough to stand at the edge of the deck, her voice low. "She seems happy," she said. "She is." She looked toward the swing where Jen was pushing our daughter, both of them laughing at something the wind carried away. Amanda swallowed hard. Is there any chance for us?" It didn't come out with drama, no desperation, just hollow curiosity, like someone checking a door one last time, knowing deep down it's already locked. I didn't speak right away, just watched my daughter's shoes kick higher toward the fading light. Then I shook my head. Once. Amanda nodded like she expected it, but the way her hands curled at her side said otherwise. "She calls her mama," she whispered. "No one told her to," I said. "She just decided." Amanda stood still for a long moment, then walked back to her car without another word. No slamming doors, no final scene, just a gold gift bag left on the picnic table, fluttering in the wind. By morning, the streamers were all on the ground. And Amanda? She didn't call again. People ask about the ticket like it's a myth, like I cashed it, burned it, lost it, or locked it away in a vault buried somewhere under 10 feet of concrete. Truth is, it's in a simple black frame. Nothing fancy, tucked on a shelf behind a row of dusty books in my home office, the kind of place you don't notice unless you're looking for it. It's still signed, still legible, still worth everything and nothing all at once. I didn't frame it for the money. That came and went in quiet ways. College fund, modest home, trusts secured, no lavish nonsense, no Lamborghinis or penthouses, just clean exits and no strings left for Amanda to pull. The real value wasn't the number printed on the slip. It was what the moment around it forced me to see, and more importantly, what I finally stopped pretending not to know. That day outside her office didn't break me. It confirmed me. I'd spent years chalking things up to stress, to schedules, to the slow erosion people don't talk about when marriages go from laughter to logistics. I let the benefit of the doubt become a blindfold. I excused the secrets, the late-night silences, the gaslighting that made me question my own sense of smell when she came home wearing cologne I didn't own. But when I heard those sounds behind the door, when I saw our daughter's face fall in real time, joy turning to confusion like a balloon slipping from her hand, that was the rupture. And I didn't rage. I didn't explode. I acted. In silence. In structure. In the language Amanda never took the time to learn. Preparation. I moved in a way she never expected because it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't public, it wasn't loud, it was deliberate, legal, paper thin and steel strong. It didn't just protect me, it protected our daughter from becoming collateral damage in a story Amanda thought she controlled. Now our mornings are slow. Pancakes burn sometimes. She names clouds on the drive to school. I still catch glimpses of Amanda's face in hers, around the eyes, in the way she smirks when she's about to say something too clever for 6. But there's no ache attached to it anymore. Just a kind of distant gratitude. Because if Amanda hadn't made the choices she did, I might still be waiting outside her door. Still trying to earn space in a life I was only meant to orbit. Still mistaking survival for love. The ticket didn't buy freedom. It exposed the locks I hadn't wanted to see. And every time I hear my daughter laugh, full-bellied, head thrown back, untouched by the weight of adult failure, I remember what that silence gave me. The clarity to stop trying. The power to walk away without a single raised voice. The wisdom to build a new life that didn't begin with forgiveness. It began with finality. People ask if I still talk to Amanda. I don't. There's nothing left to say. And that, in the end, was the loudest answer of all.